Hello, my name's Anna Hansell. I'm the Assistant Director of the Small Area Health Statistics Unit, and I'm going to talk to you about your information and how we use it. The Small Area Health Statistics Unit was set up over 30 years ago, and it was set up to look at clusters of cancers around nuclear power stations. And since then, it's had a broad remit in environmental health surveillance and cluster detection, and has been involved in investigations of a wide range of environmental hazards, looking at the waste industry, looking at overhead power lines, mobile phone masts, air pollution, noise and metal contamination of soils, and various other potential threats to environmental health. The Small Area Health Statistics Unit holds over 600 million patient records. We hold information on a wide range of health data, from hospital admissions to births, deaths, cancer registrations and congenital anomalies, and some other health data sets. And we hold those data with legal permissions and data access agreements in place with national data providers, and that includes the Office for National Statistics, NHS Digital and Public Health England. We also hold data from the Welsh Cancer Intelligence Surveillance Unit, and for some projects we have Scottish health data as well. And within those data sets we do hold personal information, so that might include postcode, place of residence, NHS number, ethnicity, and date of birth and date of death. And we hold those information in an encrypted format, and we use them only as needed for specific studies. So, for example, we might need to know where you live because we want to determine exposures to specific environmental contaminants. We might need to know date of birth because we're interested in the exposure to environmental contaminants leading up to birth. And we might need to know about ethnicity because that would affect the risk of developing certain diseases, and we need to keep that, take that into account in our statistical analyses. Small Area Health Statistics Unit uses your data under various legal frameworks. So we're part of Imperial College London, and Imperial College is a data controller under the Data Protection Act 1998. And also under the General Data Protection Regulations that are coming in force in May 2018. We also operate under specific frameworks about using health data. So we operate under the NHS Health Service Regulations 2002, and we have permission to hold and process the data from the Health Research Authority Confidentiality Advisory Group. We also have National Research Ethics Service permissions to function as a research database. And then for specific projects we have permissions and that are granted through oversight from Public Health England. And then we make all of the information about our studies available on our website. So there is some more information about those legal frameworks available on our website under your information and how we use it. Well, we need your information to be able to provide Public Health England with information about risks to population health, and to provide information on surveillance, particularly of non-communicable disease and risks that might arise from exposures to environmental hazards. We also use your information to help interpret reports of clusters, and we develop statistical methodology to try and improve the way in which public health surveillance is done, and to improve our ability to detect clusters of disease. We have a multidisciplinary team of researchers, so that means they come from different backgrounds. We have database specialists, we work with geographers, we work with statisticians, with epidemiologists like myself, so we're people who specialise in health research, and we also work with exposure specialists because we're an environmental health unit. We're concerned about environmental exposures and risks to your health. We have restricted access to the most confidential and sensitive pieces of information. So those might include the date of birth and place of residence. And we hold those in what we call an encrypted format, so they're kept confidential, and there are only 3 members of our team who are allowed direct access with those pieces of information. And they're used, for example, to link your exposure at the place where you live to how much air pollution or how much noise or how much electromagnetic frequency field you might be exposed to. And the health researchers, when they do their analyses, will look at the exposure, but they won't have direct access to those confidential and sensitive pieces of information. We take confidentiality very seriously, so all of our researchers have to undergo mandatory training, and that's updated every year before they're allowed to access the data. The health researchers don't work directly with the most sensitive pieces of information, and we work very hard to maintain confidentiality through various steps. But researchers know that if there are any breaches of confidentiality, then we would take disciplinary action against those as needed. I have to say, in the 30 years that Sahsu has been operating, we haven't had a serious breach of confidentiality in that time period. Within our remit, we specifically look at clusters of disease, and we look at disease risks in what we call small areas. With the Small Area Health Statistics Unit, we're concerned about disease risks in neighbourhoods and communities where people live. Within our remit, we develop methods to be able to use routine data. So we're particularly concerned that the large amounts of health data that are being collected about you are being used appropriately, so that we can monitor national population health, and we can inform public health policy about environmental risks to health. Sahsu are committed to protecting your rights to confidentiality. So we understand it's a privilege to hold this health information, but it's also really important to be able to hold it, to be able to look at risks to health and environmental risks to health. And we have a number of principles in place by which we maintain confidentiality. So the first of those is physical protection. So we hold the data on a standalone private network, so it has no connection with the internet, it has no connection with the college network, it's a completely separate private network. We also have certain other physical barriers, so access to the rooms on which the data can be accessed, have a swipe card, personal ID card access, and they're in lockable offices. We have software controls in place to be able to access the data in terms of the login and monitoring of the data, and also how the data get on and off the private network. And our third principle is around training of staff, because you need to have knowledgeable staff who know how to handle data responsibly and ensure its confidentiality. So one of the areas in which we train staff is around the outputs from the research. So, for example, we don't publish small numbers, and we would never publish numbers of when there are small numbers of cases in particular areas. And that's because if there's one person in a neighbourhood with a specific condition, then that person might potentially be identifiable. So all of our data in tables are in aggregate format, and we provide averages and general statistics in any of the outputs to try and minimise any chance of breaking confidentiality. We're also very careful about our maps and the scales that we use in the maps and the actual spatial resolution. So, for example, we don't produce maps that are published that provide absolute locations of where people live. So we would provide sort of average rates in an area, but we wouldn't provide X marks the spot of where a particular person with a particular condition lives. The Small Area Health Statistics Unit doesn't share information with other groups, so the data that we hold are used just for Sahsu studies. They're not used, they're not given out to other data users. The health information is all held under specific agreements with the data providers, and there are time limits specified in those data agreements. And they do vary between the different data providers, but the data need to be removed from our systems at the end of the research period that has been specified. We also will remove your data from our systems at your request and in accordance with the legal frameworks under which we operate. So you have legal rights about the way in which your personally identifiable information is collected and used. And Sahsu use data that are collected by the various data providers such as the Office for National Statistics and NHS Digital and Public Health England. And those organisations all have a lot of information on their websites about the collection and use and your rights over the use of your data. And we provided links to those websites from our website. We also have information on our tab of our website, Your Data and How We Use It, that gives you more information specific to our own use of your data and your rights about how those data are used.